In part one, we left you standing at the edge of a revelation. We told you that your environment is not passive, that the room you sit in, the apps on your phone, the food visible on your counter, they are not neutral objects. They are commands, spoken in a language so ancient, so biological, that your conscious mind never even hears them. Your brain simply obeys. But before we dissect your environment, before we hand you the tools to rewire the world around you, we need to go one layer deeper. We need to understand the engine underneath the environment, the chemistry, the ancient circuitry that decides, before you consciously choose anything, what you will crave, what you will pursue, and what you will abandon. That we need to talk about dopamine. Most people believe dopamine is the molecule of pleasure. You do something good, dopamine floods your brain. You feel happy. Simple, clean. Wrong that in the 1990s, neuroscientist Wolfram Schultz ran one of the most unsettling experiments in behavioral science. He was studying monkeys. He trained them, press a lever, receive a food reward. He expected dopamine to spike when the food arrived, and it did at first. But then something strange happened. After the monkeys had been conditioned long enough, the dopamine spike stopped occurring when the food arrived. It began occurring the moment the monkey heard the signal that food was coming. The sound of the lever being readied, the click before the reward, the anticipation, not the reward, was triggering the chemical explosion. Dopamine is not the molecule of pleasure. Dopamine is the molecule of anticipation, of craving, of wanting. The reward teaches the brain what to desire, but the desire itself, the pull, the hunger, the compulsion, that is dopamine in its purest, most dangerous form. Now apply this to your life. Why do you open Instagram before you have consciously decided to? Because your brain has been conditioned to release a dopamine spike the moment it sees the app icon. Not when you find something interesting inside. Not when you get a like or a comment. Before, the sight of the icon is the signal, and your brain is already chasing the anticipation of the reward before the app even loads. You are not weak. You are not addicted. You are operating exactly as 200,000 years of human evolution designed you to operate. The problem is that evolution never anticipated an algorithm specifically engineered to hijack that mechanism 24 hours a day. James Clear calls this a habit loop. Cue, craving, response, reward. And he says the second law of behavior change, make it attractive, is about engineering the craving. Because you do not repeat what feels good. You repeat what you anticipate will feel good. The anticipation is everything. How do you engineer craving for the habits you actually want? Clear gives you two weapons. The first is called temptation bundling. Ronan Byrne was an electrical engineering student in Dublin who faced a problem most people recognize intimately. He loved watching Netflix. He hated exercising. Both things were real. Both things were consistent. And they were pulling him in opposite directions every single day. He did something that sounds almost absurdly simple. He hacked his exercise bike to connect to his laptop, and he programmed it so that Netflix would only stream. The video would only play while he was actively pedaling. Stop pedaling. The show pauses. The moment his legs moved, the reward began. He did not build discipline. He built a craving for the gym, because his brain now associated the anticipation of his favorite show with the act of exercise. The cue for one triggered the desire for both. The formula is elegant. Pair a habit you need with a habit you want. Link the behavior that serves your future with the pleasure that serves your present. You only listen to your favorite podcast while running. You only watch that series while folding laundry. You only allow yourself that coffee while doing your morning review. The want funds a need. The second weapon is even more powerful and far more underestimated. It is your social environment. James Clear is blunt about this in a way that most people find uncomfortable. The most effective thing you can do to make a habit attractive is to join a culture where the desired behavior is the normal behavior. When you join a running club, you do not need motivation to run. Every person around you is running. Not running starts to feel abnormal. When you work at a company where staying late and thinking deeply is celebrated, late hours begin to feel natural. When all your close friends read voraciously, not having a book recommendation feels like a social deficiency. Human beings are not rational actors who evaluate cost and benefit. We are social animals who desperately crave belonging, and we will perform almost any behavior to remain inside the group we identify with. This is not weakness. This is architecture, and the architect who understands it uses it with precision. Choose your tribe the way a general chooses terrain, not for comfort, for strategic advantage. You now understand how to make habits crave-worthy. But craving is only half the equation. The other half, the one that silently destroys more ambitions than almost any other force, is friction. There's a principle in physics called the path of least resistance. Water does not decide where to flow. It flows where the terrain makes flowing easiest. A river does not choose its course through willpower or discipline. It follows the lowest friction path, always, without exception. James Clear's central argument in the third law is this: human beings are not lazier than they could be. Human beings are exactly as lazy as physics predicts. We follow the path of least resistance every single time. And the designer who understands this does not fight human nature. They redesigned the terrain in 2010. Google ran an internal experiment that became legendary in behavioral economics. They placed candy in opaque, lidded containers on office cafeteria counters. Fruit was placed in open, transparent bowls directly at eye level. In just 7 weeks, candy consumption dropped by 3.1 million calories across their New York office. No memo was sent. No policy was changed. No one was told to eat less candy. The friction of lifting a lid and the reduced visibility of the candy versus the zero friction of reaching for visible fruit was enough to shift the behavior of thousands of intelligent, high-agency adults. This is environment design. And Clear makes a principle devastatingly simple. To build a good habit, reduce the friction between you and it. To break a bad habit, increase the friction between you and it. Want to exercise in the morning? Sleep in your gym clothes. Put your running shoes next to your bed. Remove every micro decision that gives your half-asleep brain an escape route. Want to read more? Put the book on your pillow. Not on the shelf, not on the table, on your pillow. Want to eat less junk food? Do not buy it. Do not rely on the willpower to resist what is already in the house. The battle is won or lost at the grocery store, not at midnight in front of the open fridge. Clear calls this priming the environment. You are not changing your motivation. You are redesigning the architecture of your daily world so that the right choice is always the default choice, the obvious choice, the only choice that requires zero additional willpower to execute. And now, Clear delivers the sharpest edge of the third law, the rule that sounds so impossibly small that almost everyone dismisses it, and then changes everything once they actually apply it. We are conditioned to believe that transformation requires suffering, that the bigger the goal, the more brutal the starting ritual must be. We believe in the mythology of the overnight grind, the 4 a.m. wake up, the 2-hour workout, the 10-page journal entry on day one. And this mythology is not just wrong, it is psychologically lethal. Because the moment your identity says, I am someone who does hard things, and then day one is genuinely hard and you fail, you do not just fail the task, you confirm the deeper fear that you were never meant to succeed. The 2-minute rule dismantles this entirely. Clear's principle is surgical in its simplicity. When you start a new habit, it should take less than 2 minutes to do. Read every night before bed becomes. Read 1 page. Do 30 minutes of yoga becomes. Take out my yoga mat. Study French for 20 minutes becomes. Open my French app. Run 3 miles becomes. Put on my running shoes and walk outside. 2 minutes. That is the entire ritual. That is the whole commitment. This sounds like it cannot possibly work. This sounds like a trick for children. And that reaction, that dismissal, is precisely why most people never build lasting habits. Because they do not understand what the 2-minute rule is actually doing. It is not about the 2 minutes. It is about what the 2 minutes proves. Every time you open a book, even for 60 seconds, you cast a vote for the identity of a reader. Every time you unroll the yoga mat, even if you do nothing else, you cast a vote for the identity of someone who practices yoga. The ritual of beginning is the ritual of becoming. And Clear makes a point that sounds almost counterintuitive. A habit must be established before it can be optimized. You cannot improve something that does not exist yet. You must first make it automatic. And you make it automatic by making it so small that failure is not an option. You can scale anything that exists. You cannot scale a ghost. And so now you understand the architecture. Compound 1%. Build from identity. Make it obvious. Make it attractive. Make it easy. You have the framework of a person who builds habits with the precision of an engineer and the patience of a philosopher. But we have only given you 3 laws. And the 4th, the final law, is where most people collapse, where entire systems built over months dissolve overnight. Because the 4th law does not deal with starting. It deals with continuing. And continuing is where your biology turns against you in ways that are almost poetic in their cruelty. Here is the dark truth that behavioral scientists have known for decades, but that no one tells you in a productivity book because it is too uncomfortable. Your brain was not designed for the long game. It was designed for survival in an environment where the future was uncertain, food was scarce, and tomorrow was not guaranteed. Every neural reward system in your body is optimized for immediate return. Eat the berry now. Do not wait to see if a better bush exists tomorrow. Take the shelter tonight. Do not plan for a more comfortable cave next month. And here is where it becomes lethal for your habits. Almost every behavior that builds a meaningful life, exercising, saving money, studying, building a business, deepening relationships, delivers its reward in the future, weeks, months, years away. But almost every bad habit delivers its reward immediately. The cigarette calms you now. The sugar rush hits you now. The scroll numbs the anxiety now. The avoidance removes the discomfort now. This is not a character flaw. This is not weakness. This is a time inconsistency of the human brain. The biological reality that you will always, in any given moment, weigh immediate costs and immediate rewards more heavily than future ones, even when you know better, even when you have read every book, even when you have built the system that how do you make your future self win against your present self? How do you rewire 200,000 years of evolutionary programming? How do you build a life where the habits that serve your destiny feel as immediately satisfying as the habits that are quietly destroying it? That is the 4th law. That is the secret that lives in part 3. And it is not what you expect. It is something older than habit science, deeper than behavioral psychology, something that cuts to the very root of what it means to be a human being trying to build a life worth living. The present self always wins until you design a system where the future self has a fighting chance.